Good morning, Year 5. Happy Wednesday, happy hump day. We are halfway through the week. I hope that you've had a good week so far. Now, I know there were some issues yesterday with the sound quality on my video, so I'm really sorry about that, and I hope it didn't mess up your learning too much yesterday. Hopefully you were still able to do some of your learning, or all of your learning. I've had a look at it and I think I've fixed it for today. So hopefully today's lesson will be better, but if not, do let me know. So let's get going with today's lesson. So what do you need? So same as always, you need something to write with and something to write on. You need today's independent task, which you can find on the Grange website, and a ruler would be very useful for today's lesson, particularly if you have one with centimetres and inches on it. Don't worry if you don't, it will just come in handy if you do. So pause the lesson, get everything that you need and come back when you're ready. So just a reminder that I would love to see your completed work. I've seen lots of it coming in already. I'm thinking already about who's going to be in the shout out video at the end of the week, who's been sending really good work in all week. So keep sending your work in to the Year 5 email address. And remember, you can ask me questions on this email address here or in the comments under the video. Either one is fine. Right, so let's go over our learning journey, where we've been before and where we're up to. So over the last couple of weeks, you have been converting between different units of measure. And up to now, you've been looking at metric units of measure, and you've looked at lots of different metric units of measure for length. So you converted between kilometres and metres and millimetres, etc. And then yesterday, we looked at converting all four different types of units of metric measures for length. Now today we are going to introduce the concept of imperial measures for the first time, so you might not have come across these before, and we're going to continue with that through the week. So we're going to learn different types of imperial measures for length, for weight and for capacity, and for each one we're going to convert between the metric measures for that thing and the imperial measures for that thing. So starting today with length, we're going to look at imperial measures for length and convert between metric and imperial measures for length. So that brings us onto our date in our life for today. So write down the short date for maths, the learning intention, which as we just talked about is using imperial units of length and converting those with metric units of length. So pause the video, get your date in LI written. If you want to challenge yourself, you can have a go at today's date in Roman numerals, and press play when you're ready. So how will we know if we've been successful today, if we've achieved the learning intention? So you will be successful today if by the end of the lesson you understand, you know what the metric measurement system is, and you know what the units of measurement in metric are for length. You know what the imperial measurement system is, and you know what the imperial units of measurement are for length. You know what approximate means, and some of you might know that already. And you can make approximate equivalences or conversions between metric and imperial measures for length. So that sounds, there's a lot of words there, but essentially what we're doing is learning how you measure length in metric, which you already know, how you measure length in imperial, which we're going to talk about today, and how you convert between the two. So a little recap of things that we've talked about already. So some of this you learned about before with Mr. Oland. Some of this I talked about yesterday. And remember, every time we recall information that's stored in our memory, we strengthen that memory and that knowledge that we have. So it's really good to try and remember things often. So let's just read through the questions. Why do we have common measurement systems around the world? What's the point of them? Who uses the metric measurement system? Which countries? What are some of the metric units of measurement? Now, remember I said before, you've been learning about metric units the whole time up to now. So think of any of the ones you've learnt about for measurement. Who uses the imperial measurement system? And do you know any imperial units of measurement? Now that last question isn't really recap because we haven't talked about it a lot yet. So just think about whether you know any of those. Now, just to realise I've forgotten to put my pause sign here, so I'm just going to tell you, pause the video and have a go at answering the questions, and press play when you're ready. So here we are. So why do we have a common measurement system? We have that so we have a common language around the world. Everybody knows how big something is, how much something weighs, how much liquid something is, because they have this common system of measurement. So who uses the metric system? Most of the world uses the metric measurement system, including the UK, for most things. Some metric units, there's lots you could have. I've just put a couple here: grams, kilograms, meters, centimeters, litres, etc. All the ones you've been learning about over the last few weeks. Who uses the imperial measurement system? We talked about this yesterday. So the United States of America and the UK, the United Kingdom, used to use it, and we still use it for some things. Some imperial units of measurement, pounds, miles, pints, inches, are some of the ones you may have heard of. So well done if you got that correct. So just a reminder, we've been through this kind of in our answers there, but just to be really clear, so we have a unit of measurement as a system to describe the size of something. And most of the world uses the metric system, but some countries use the imperial system. And in the United Kingdom, we use metric for some things and imperial for other things, which can be a bit confusing. So it's really important that we know how to convert between metric and imperial to be able to continue that common language, to make sure we understand what it means. So here's a good example. So if we wanted to use a map from another country, say we were going on a road trip across America, and that map might be in miles, and we might not understand that. Or actually, that's not a great example. Let's use a different example. If we were going on a road trip in Europe, where they use kilometres, we use miles in the UK, so we might not understand what it means. So we need to be able to convert between them. Now, this here tells me that 5 miles is approximately 8 kilometres. Now, that sign is a bit weird. It looks like a bit of a wobbly equal sign, and that sign means approximately equal to. You should have heard the word approximately before, but if you haven't, it means roughly, about. So it's not an exact equal, it's approximately equal. So 5 miles is approximately 8 kilometres. So if I know that, that helps me to work out a distance. So if 5 miles equals 8 kilometres, then if I'm trying to work out 10 miles, how could that help me? So remember, 5 miles was 8 kilometres. 5 miles, 8 kilometres. So pause the video and see if you can answer this question. Remember, 5 miles was 8 kilometres, so how many kilometres is 10 miles? Did you get it right? 10 miles is roughly 16 kilometres. Now I'm guessing you might have calculated that because 5 miles was 8 kilometres and 10 is double 5. So if we double our 8 kilometres, we get 16. So that helps us to work it out. So you can see that it's really important that we can convert between the two. So I want to see what you know already. So have you heard of these words before? These are some common imperial units of measure. If you have heard of them, what do you think you use them to measure? So we have inches, pounds, and pints. Now I have a bit of a clue here. In this case, we're not talking about pounds as in money, like £100 of money. It's a different type of pounds. So have a think, press pause, see if you know what you use these imperial units to measure. When you're ready, press play. So, inches. Inches are a unit of length. So we use them to measure length. And you can see here, just move my face a little bit. Here's a ruler. And on a lot of rulers, you have centimetres on one side and inches on the other. So if you have a ruler in front of you, you might want to have a look and see if you can see that. So we've got centimetres here, inches here. Centimetres are the metric measure, inches are the imperial measure. We have pounds. Did you work out what pounds are used to measure? They're used to measure weight. So on some weighing scales, they might have grams and kilograms, which is the metric measure, and also pounds and ounces, which is the imperial measure. And it's the sign for pounds is LB, which is a bit weird because it's like pounds with a P, but it's LB. And pints we use to measure capacity. So if you have a measuring jug, you might have litres on one side, which is the metric measure, and pints on the other side, which is the imperial measure. And if you buy your milk from the supermarket, our milk in the UK is still sold in pints, which is strange because we generally use the metric system to measure capacity. So we've talked about some imperial units, and we've talked about for weeks, a couple of weeks now, metric units that you've been learning about. So I want to see if you can fill in this table. So for each of the types of measurement, so measuring length, weight, capacity, I want to see if you can list the metric units that we use to measure those. And just a reminder, those are the ones you've been learning about before, and the imperial units, which we've just talked about, and you might know some other ones as well. So see if you can fill in this table with the different units of length that we use. I'll give you an example. For length, the metric units, you might list all the ones you learnt about last week, so centimetres, millimetres, metres, etc. But for imperial, we just learned that you use things like inches, but we also learnt about the ones you use if you're driving a car and the distance, so think about what we said we use for that. Okay, so pause the video, fill in the table, and press play when you're ready to see the answers. Here we go. How many did you get? So you should have got lots for the metric side because you've been learning about those, and hopefully you also got a few of the imperial units as well. We didn't talk about all of them like gallon, stone, but you might have known those already. So hopefully you got quite a few there. So let's talk about imperial units just for length. So just like we have things like millimetres, centimetres, metres and kilometres in metric, we have a similar system in imperial. So the smallest unit of imperial is an inch, then we have a foot, a yard and a mile. A mile is sort of what we would use in a similar way as a kilometre. So an inch is about, remember we use that sign for about, approximately, that wobbly equal sign, about 2.5 centimetres. A foot is about 30 centimetres. It's about the size of your books at school, your English books. A yard is almost 1 metre. So if you remember, we've been talking about metre sticks. A yard is just a bit less than that. And a mile is 1.6 kilometres. So now that you know this, I want you to think about which imperial unit of length would you use to measure the following. Your journey from home to school. So if you were measuring the distance from home to school, which of these ones would make sense to use? If you were measuring the length of a book, which one would you use? And if you were measuring the length of a corridor, which one would you use? Think about which one makes the most sense. So pause the video, have a think. If you've got somebody with you, you could have a chat with them. If you're on your own, just have a think and we will discuss in a moment. So I think if you were measuring your journey from home to school, if you measured it in inches, it might take you a very long time. So the most sensible one, depending, you might live really, really close to school, in which case you could possibly do yards. But for most people, you'd want to measure that in miles. It's going to be a couple of miles away. For the length of a book, well, again, it depends on the book, but probably you'd be looking at, if it's like a school book, like a big school book, you might use a foot, but if it's a littler reading book, you'd probably use inches. And the length of a corridor, again, depends on the corridor, but you'd probably be looking at yards, a couple of metres, a couple of yards. So let's see what this problem says. My teacher has asked me to measure the length of the hall. I'm going to measure it in inches. Are you sure that's the right unit to use? Pause the video, have a think. Do you think that's the right measurement to use? No, I think if you measured the hall in inches, it might take quite some time. So if we go back to here, I think you'd probably be looking at yards for the hall, wouldn't you? Otherwise you'd be taking quite a long time. So if you do have a ruler, if you don't have a ruler, don't worry about this bit, you can skip forward. But if you do have a ruler at home, have a look at how many centimetres are in an inch. So if you remember we talked about before, how many centimetres can you see on the other side? And remember, it doesn't have to be exact, approximately, that wiggly equal sign, approximately how much. So we sort of want to round to the nearest sensible number. If you don't have a ruler, you can look at this one here and see if that helps you. what does it look like? 2.5 centimetres or 2.5 centimetres is approximately, roughly, equal to 1 inch. See if you can find some things that you would typically find in a classroom. So things like pencils, books, rubbers, maybe the table that you're working on, and see if you can measure them. If this is only if you have a ruler, don't worry if you don't. Measure them in centimetres and measure them in inches, and see if you can prove that an inch is 2.5 times larger than a centimetre. So if you have got a ruler, have a go at measuring some objects in centimetres and inches. If you don't have a ruler, just skip on to the next bit. So let's have a look at what we're doing today, which is converting between inches, the imperial unit, and centimetres, the metric unit. Now, we just learnt that 1 inch is approximately 2.5 centimetres. So if we know that, how could we calculate other measurements? So if 1 inch is 2.5, how can we find out 2 inches? We can double it because we know that 2 is double 1. So to double the centimetres, we need to double 2.5. And double 2.5 is 5. We know that. We should just know that from our number facts. So we know now that 2 inches is 5 centimetres. What about the other measurements? So how could we do 10 inches? Well, we know that 1 inch is 2.5, and we know that to get from 1 to 10, we times by 10. So we can times 2.5 by 10, and we get 25. And we know that because we can use our place value grid and think about our place value to know that when you times by 10, the number gets 10 times bigger. 2.5 times 10 is 25. So now we know that 10 inches is 25 centimetres. Now, if we know that 10 inches is 25 centimetres, what else does that help us work out? Well, what's the relationship between 5 and 10? 5 is half of 10. So that means to work out the centimetres, I can half 25. And half of 25 is 12.5. So if I share that out, divide it by 2, I get 12.5. So now I know that one. What about 20 inches? Well, if I've got 10 inches, 20 is double 10. So I can double the centimetres. 25 times 2, or doubled, is 50. Easy peasy. Now, last one, we want to find out 25. Well, I've got 20 and I've got 5. So to get 25, I add 20 and 5. So I can add together the centimetres as well. Add 50 and 12.5. And that gives me 62.5. So once you know one conversion, it's really easy to work out the others because you just use what you know to help you work out what you don't know. So we can also convert the other way round. So first, in this slide, we were converting inches to centimetres, but you can also convert centimetres to inches in exactly the same way. So what I'd like you to do in a minute is pause the video to see if you can complete the table using exactly the same method that we did before. So if I know that 1 centimetre is 0.4 inches, how can I use this information to fill in the rest of the table? So think about what I did before. I used what I know to fill in the blank spaces. So if 1 centimetre is 0.4, to find out 2 centimetres, what could I do to this answer? So pause the video and see if you can fill in this table, and when you're ready, come back and we'll talk it through. So hopefully you've managed to fill in your whole table. 1 centimetre is 0.4, so to find out 2 centimetres I can just double it because double 1 is 2, so double 0.4 is 0.8. Again, if I've got 2 centimetres and I want to get to 4 centimetres, I can just double it. Double 2 is 4, double 0.8 is 1.6. And again, I know that because I know that double 8 is 16, but we're not doubling 8, we're doubling 0.8, so it's 1.6. Now, 5 isn't double 4, but 5 is 1 more than 4, so I can add together 4 and 1 to get 5. So I add 1.6 and 0.4 and I get 2. And again, I know that because I know that 16 plus 4 is 20, so I know that 1.6 plus 0.4 is 2. Now another easy one here, I've got 5, so I can easily work out 10, and this is a super easy one because double 5 is 10 and double 2 is 4. Easy peasy. Again, another easy one here, I want to find out 12 centimetres. I've got the conversion for 10 and I've got the conversion for 2, so I add them together, 4.8. Another nice doubling one here. What do I need to double to get to 20? I double 10 to get to 20, so double 4 is 8. Now 31 is a bit of a strange one, but I can add together the answer for, so what makes 31? We've got 20 and 10 and 1. So I add together 8 and 4 and 0.4 and I get 12.4. Hopefully you got all of those correct. If you didn't, see if you can go back and work out where you went wrong. Right, let's practice now using the information we've learned for conversion to help us solve some problems. So up here I've got a reminder that 1 inch is roughly approximately 2.5 centimetres and 1 centimetre is approximately 0.4 inches. And it says class 5B, so another year 5 class, grew some seedlings as part of their science topic. And you can see that down here, they've been growing some plants. I'm sure some of you have been growing some plants at home during lockdown. But halfway through the term, Mr. Leonard asked half the class to measure the height of their seedlings in inches and the other half of the class to measure theirs in centimetres. And this is what they got. So this one, or one of the plants, is 3.2 inches, one is 2 inches, and one is 7 centimetres. He wants us to order the measurements from shortest to tallest. First, we need to convert them all to the same unit because we can't order them if they're not in the same unit. That's too difficult. So because we've got 2 of them, the measurements in inches, it would make sense to convert the measurement that's in centimetres. So let's just go back for a minute. So 7 centimetres, I want to convert it to inches. So I know that 1 centimetre is 0.4. So I need to find out 7 centimetres. So if 1 is 0.4, I need to do 7 lots of 0.4. Now I know from my times tables that 7 times 4 is 28. 7, 14, 21, 28. However, it's not 28 because it was 0.4, not 4, it's 2.8. So now I've got my answer. Now that they're all in inches, I can put them in order. So the shortest one looks to me to be 2 inches, and then 2.8, and then 3.2. Now usually with these questions you write the measurements in their original form. So although we worked out the conversion to be 2.8, we can write it back in 7 centimetres as it was originally. Okay, so you have had a go at converting from inches to centimetres and from centimetres to inches. And now you need to apply that knowledge, practice it in your tasks. So superstars, your task looks like this today, and you will be predominantly practicing converting those measurements. Now, if you remember, when we did it together, I showed you some tricks for how to convert ones you don't know. So things like doubling, halving, timesing by 10, adding previous answers together, and using repeated addition. So use those tricks that we did together to help you today. So you don't have to use the same one every time, just find the one that works. So for example, if you know 1 inch, you can double it for 2 inches. If you know 2 inches, you can double it for 4 inches, and so on. Okay, so use that to help you. It looks like this. You can pause the video here if you're a superstar and press play when you want to come back for the answers. Blue zone, we haven't got any additional input today, but here is your task. So similar thing, you've got some converting here and then some problems to solve. Superstars have got some problems to solve as well. So pause the video, have a go at your task and come back when you're ready for the answers. How did you do, superstars? So here are your answers for the first part of your task. Down here, I've written the calculations because it said show your working, show how you worked it out. How many centimetres are in 20 inches? Well, I know that 1 inch is 2.5 centimetres, so that means I know that 10 inches is 25 centimetres, and then I double that to find 20 inches, which is 50 centimetres. So that was my working out. And for this one, how many inches in 12.5 centimetres? Well, I know that 2.5 centimetres is 1 inch, so double that, 5 centimetres is 2 inches, and double that again, 10 centimetres is 4 inches. Now I've done 2.5 and I've done 10, so I can add those together to get 12.5 centimetres. 1 inch and 4 inches is 5 inches. Here's the second part of your answers, superstars. So this one was similar to the one we did together, but hopefully you managed to convert them accurately. And then we had a problem here at the end, which said Haroon's seedling measured 4 centimetres when he first measured it. It grew 2 inches. What was the final measurement? So we had to convert the inches to centimetres. So I know that 1 inch is 2.5 centimetres. So I know that 2 inches is 5 centimetres. It was originally 4 and it grew 5. So in total, it's now 9 centimetres. Right, superstars, here is the first part. Oh no, sorry, not superstars, blue zone. Got confused there for a minute. Blue zone, here is your answers. Pause the video and copy them down. And the rest of your answers here. So have a look up here and here. And then I've written out the answer to the problem. So we had 2 children, William and Chen, and it says that William is the tallest. Do you agree? Explain your answer. I do agree, because I converted William's height to centimetres. Now I know that 1 inch is 2.5 centimetres approximately, so I did 54, because that's how many inches tall William is, by 2.5, and I got 135 centimetres. And then converted it into metres, because Chen's height is in metres, by dividing by 100, because I learnt that last week, how to do that. And that gives me 1.35 metres. So that means William is taller, which is what it said here, than Chen just by 1 centimetre. Hopefully you got that right. So, well done for getting through today's lesson. Please send me your work. I would love to see how you got on. And if you have any questions, you can drop me an email. See you tomorrow.